Alongside showing off an extended look at the new Guardians of the Galaxy game and doing a very quick tease of a new suite of remasters for Final Fantasy 1 through 6, the Square Enix E3 2021 press conference was closed off with the unveiling of a brand new Final Fantasy game. Due to a series of unfortunate leaks that were then corroborated by industry veterans such as Imran Khan of Fanbyte, one of the worst kept secrets in video gaming in the lead up to this E3 was the reveal of Stranger of Paradise, Final Fantasy Origin. It will be a brand new Final Fantasy Gaiden experience, and it will be developed by Team Ninja with creative direction from senior figures at Square Enix. The game will be directed by Daisuke Inui, who for the past 4 years has served as the director of Opera Omnia, another game developed by Team Ninja. Before that, Inui was one of the lead planners on Lightning Returns and served as a battle planner on Final Fantasy XIII, Crystal Chronicles Echoes of Time, and Dirge of Cerberus. Inui will be assisted by Jin Fujiwara, who will act as producer, a role he has also fulfilled on Opera Omnia alongside Inui. Prior to Opera Omnia, Fujiwara was part of what was known as Business Division 4, where he worked alongside Ichiro Hazama on games like Theatrhythm and Pictologica. According to an interview that was published on the official Square Enix website, Tetsuya Nomura was the one who came up with the idea for Stranger of Paradise, and the process started around 10 years ago when development was wrapping up on Dissidia Duodecim. At the time, Nomura envisioned a game where the focus was about capturing locations as opposed to fighting against characters, and it would again be action-focused. Around the same time, Nomura was also conceptualizing another project that revolved around the story of an angry man, but neither project gained any real traction at the time. It was only when Nomura was asked to put forth a new plan that he decided to combine the two projects into one, something that spawned Stranger of Paradise. The game will be focused around a character who, for now, is just known as Jack, and he looks remarkably like Corleonis from Final Fantasy XV, a character who was coincidentally voiced by Matt Mercer, the actor who presented this year's Square Enix press conference. Jack is not the most standout of character names, and as a fun fact, it's actually the 8th time we've seen a character with that name in the franchise, although their significance has varied over the years. Jack was a low-key NPC in Final Fantasy VIII who was part of the Card Club. Jack, or Alleyway Jack, was the alias for Gilgamesh in Final Fantasy IX. Jack Moshe was one of the more memorable antagonists in Crystal Chronicles. Jack was a secret character in Chocobo Racing, acting as a nod to the main character in the 3D battles of World Runner. Jack was also the main character's name in the Japanese version of Mystic Quest. Ray Jack appeared as the main character in the original King's Knight and its 27 reboot, and one of the class members of Class 0 was also called Jack in Final Fantasy Type 0. This Jack has only received a brief description so far, but we do know he's a very angry man who, if you've watched the trailer, will know has a very strong focus around wanting to defeat chaos. Based on that compulsion, Jack has no hesitation to kill everything that stands in his way with no remorse and no mercy. He will be voiced by Mosine Melvin, whose main credit to date is providing the narration of a TV series called Vengeance, which feels quite fitting. Jack is then supported in this endeavour to defeat chaos by 2 other protagonists, Jed and Ash. Jed is voiced by Alejandro Saab, who played Jules in the Final Fantasy VII Remake, as well as Laswell in War of the Visions. But unlike Jack, Jed is known for being kind and cheerful. Despite the clear anger issues displayed by Jack, Jed is said to respect him and admires his strength, and in terms of his combat prowess, even though Jed is quite small in stature in comparison to the other 2 protagonists, he is said to be just as strong. The final protagonist is called Ash, and he'll be voiced by Matt Nealy in what appears to be his first voice acting role. Like Jed, it's said that Ash respects Jack's fighting ability and does what he can to support him in his quest to try and defeat chaos. Each of these characters has been created by Nomura, but the story has been conceived and written by veteran writer Kazushige Nojima. In the same aforementioned interview, Nojima said he feels the story he's crafted will be quite memorable and will work alongside the brutal gameplay style that's been adopted. He also hopes the player will be drawn to understand why the protagonists are so fixated on attempting to defeat chaos instead of having much wider hopes and dreams of their own. It hasn't been declared in an official sense, But based on their blind obsession to defeat chaos, and the fact that they all appear to be wearing non-fantasy clothing in their concept art, as well as numerous gameplay segments, Stranger of Paradise could well be another isekai story, where the three protagonists have been ripped from their world and placed in this new one. I say another isekai story because it seems to be a common trend at Square Enix in recent times. They produced a manga a few years ago called Final Fantasy Lost Stranger, which followed the journey of a Square Enix employee who died and was reborn in a Final Fantasy world. Dragon Quest Your Story was also an isekai story, and it seems to be the basis of the upcoming game from Luminous Productions called Forspoken, where Frey Holland is said to be a stranger in the world of Athia. In the case of Stranger of Paradise, the game appears to be set in the same world as the original Final Fantasy. We saw Garland, and his design was very traditional. In addition, the protagonists also talk about making their way through the Chaos Shrine, a classic dungeon from the original game, and mention an assumption that they are the Warriors of Light, but it's also been noted within the press material that they may not actually be the Warriors of Light who had been prophesized. Either way, it feels like a concrete connection, but at the moment, we don't really know much more about why they're in this world or whether it's actually the same world. One interesting theory that's cropped up came from a user on Reddit called Solivation. They noted that this game could have some kind of connection with Dissidia, or will adopt similar principles to those displayed in Dissidia. That sub-franchise was also conceived by Nomura, and although Nojima was not involved in the story of the original two games, as they were written by Sayori Itamuro, he did create the concept for Dissidia NT. Those games were all about cycles, and the theory suggests that what we're seeing here is another cycle of that original story, where there were 3 Warriors of Light as opposed to 4. Within the original game, there is also the notion of cycles too, as Chaos goads the party before the final battle by saying that they will continue to die while he is reborn. From a gameplay perspective, both Nomura and Nojima were keen to highlight that even though it's a lot more brutal and adult than would be typical of a Final Fantasy game, and that may be off-putting for some, the gameplay does have a strong link to the story. One of the core facets will be depleting an enemy's break gauge so that Jack can perform a soul burst. This is what we saw happening numerous times throughout the trailer, and it results in the enemy turning to crystal and shattering, something that in turn allows Jack to recover a small amount of MP. MP will then be used to perform moves, and one, provisionally known as Lightbringer, will see Jack become temporarily strengthened, making it easier to break enemies. At its core, Stranger of Paradise will be an action RPG, and there are clear similarities with Nioh, a game previously worked on by Team Ninja. But until the promised demo goes live, it will be difficult to tell where it lies on the Team Ninja spectrum, as they also work on the Ninja Gaiden franchise. Based on its RPG roots, Jack will be able to defeat enemies and improve his attributes, while also learning new abilities. But to tie in with Final Fantasy, Jack will be able to use various job classes to alter his playstyle, and those jobs will also influence the equipment and abilities he can use. At the moment, we know that from the original game, Warrior and Black Mage will resurface. But it's also been revealed that Dragoon will feature, even though it wasn't introduced into the franchise until Final Fantasy II thanks to Richard Highwind. Each job will have specific equipment, such as the Dragoon job, where we saw Jack use a lance, and the Black Mage job, where Jack was seen using a rod and shield. And in this regard, it will be interesting to see a Black Mage who balances the use of powerful magic with prowess in physical combat. It was also noted that although there will be some standard abilities associated with each of the weapons that Jack can wield, some abilities that are synonymous with Final Fantasy will also resurface. But even though numerous job classes will be available to choose from, in combat, Jack will be restricted to only being able to switch between 2 at a time. Alongside Garland, who will no doubt be one of the boss encounters, we also saw Bombs, a classic Final Fantasy enemy that actually didn't appear until the second game in the franchise. This was in addition to skeleton warriors, bats, a wolf-like beast, and a heavily armoured griffin that has also been denoted as another boss encounter. Now, as was revealed at the end of the trailer, Square Enix had plans to release a demo exclusively on the PlayStation 5 and for a limited period of time, and this was to be done so that they could gather feedback from a rather enthusiastic fanbase. This was very reminiscent of what happened in the build-up to Final Fantasy XV, as Square Enix released episode Dusky and then used the feedback to make some significant changes, even to the point that they made Ray Chase re-audition for his role as fans were not happy with how he sounded. The demo, called Trial Version, did go live as planned, but for some reason it turned out to be corrupted, and on the official Twitter account for the game, it was noted that they are attempting to resolve the issue, but couldn't offer a time frame for when it would be fixed. It means Stranger of Paradise, which hasn't been all that well received, has some work to do in order to recover from what has not been the ideal announcement period. Either way, Square Enix and Team Ninja will have time to put things right, as the game is scheduled to release at some point during 2022, and even though the demo will be a PlayStation 5 exclusive, the actual game will be launching on the PC, PS4, PS5, Xbox One, and both the Xbox Series consoles. But with that, I think we're all up to date with everything concerning Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin. If you enjoyed this update video, then please do consider hitting that like button and make sure to let us know in the comments how you're feeling about the game and everything that's happened. Alright everyone, this is Daryl signing out. I'd like to extend a big thank you to all of our Patreon and YouTube membership supporters, especially Raining Eckham, Logan Nijay, Benjamin Snow and Gregory, who are super special Onion Knight supporters, and of course, a big thank you to everyone for watching this video. I'll see you all again soon for more Final Fantasy goodness.